heaven is open. There's angels coming and going up and down this ladder, and the Lord is there. He's like, it says that God's like at the top of the ladder, and in this dream, God like tells him his promise over his life, right? And so he's like, Jacob, your descendants are going to be this many, and you're going to have, I'm going to bring you back here, and this is going to be the land you'll possess, and all these things, right? He shares this promise with Jacob. But the thing that like really has my attention is how Jacob responded. Because I'm just naturally, I'm a promise responder. Like, I trust Jesus so much, man. If he gives me a promise, I'm in and we're doing it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, maybe it's part of my personality, I don't know, but I'm like a promise responder, like, okay, you said it, let's do it. But Jacob didn't respond that way. This is how Jacob responded. Jacob awoke from his sleep and said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I didn't know it." He was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven." And I just keep rereading that because it feels like just like in the midst of all the amazing promises and the very word of God to us, he just keeps drawing my attention back to his presence. The Lord is here. His response wasn't like, "Wow, okay, how are we going to do that?" Even though he did walk in this promise, right? But his response, his attention was so given to the presence of God, to the presence of Jesus that he experienced in that place. So much so that he takes a rock and names it after that. I don't think it had anything to do with the rock. I think it had everything to do with the Lord had his attention. So let's stand. And let's just, like, in our minds, in our hearts, in our spirits, just focus all of our attention. The Lord is here. Surely the Lord is here. This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven right here. He and I, me and him. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for faithfully being fully present with us. This is holy ground. We look at you this morning. We thank you for all your promises and all of your goodness. And Father, in the midst of that place, we just look at you. Because you're just amazing. You're kind and you're so merciful. So pure. And everywhere you are is holy, holy ground. We look at you this morning.
I'll never be more loved than I am right now. Wasn't holding you up, so there's nothing I could do to let you down. It doesn't take a trophy to make you proud. I'll never be more loved than I am right now.
Going through a storm, but I won't back down. I hear your voice carried in the rhythm of the wind to call me out.
You would cross an ocean so I wouldn't drown.
You'll never be closer than you are right now.
'Cause you are Jireh. You are enough, Jireh. You are enough, so I will be content in every circumstance. 'Cause you are Jireh. You are enough, forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough.
Don't wanna forget how I feel right now on the mountain. I can see clear what it's all about.
So stay by my side when the sun goes down.
Don't wanna forget how I feel right now.
'Cause you are Jireh. You are enough, Jireh. You are enough, yes. So I will be content in every circumstance. 'Cause you are Jireh. You are enough, forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever, forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. I'm already loved, I'm already chosen. I know who I am, I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved, more than I can imagine. That is enough. I'm already loved, I'm already loved, I'm already chosen. I know who I am, I know what you've spoken. I'm already loved, more than I can imagine. That is more than enough. One more time, let's sing Jireh. 'Cause you are Jireh, and you are enough. Jireh, and you are enough. Yes, Lord. So I will be content in every circumstance. So I will be content in every circumstance. I will. And I will be content in every circumstance. 'Cause you are Jireh, and you are enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. One more time. Forever enough, always enough, more than enough. Forever enough, always enough, you're more than enough. Thank you, Lord.
More than you ask, think or imagine. According to His plan. More than you ask. He's more than you ask, think or imagine. Oh, He's more than you ask, think or imagine. It's more than you ask, think or imagine. He's more than you ask, think or imagine. Yes. He's more than you ask, think or imagine. He's more than you ask, think or imagine. He's more than you ask, think or imagine. According You can have all this world. You can have all this world. More than silver, more than gold. You are the treasure that I hold. Now that I've tasted of your goodness, nothing else will satisfy. Give me I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. You are my one thing. You are my one thing. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else.
keep thinking about what that really means when we say that. It means he can have our money and our talent, even the people we love. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. You are my one thing. You are my one thing. I don't want anyone else. I don't need anything else. You are my one thing.
feel like there's such a cost in this kind of choice and this kind of all-out abandonment. And so it's easy, I just feel the weight of what Lauren is saying. It's easy to say and sing the words. I just feel like we need a moment to weigh the cost. Am I really willing to say these words with my soul, with my life, with my job, with my children, with my home? And yes, his burden is easy, his yoke is light, but yet it requires nothing less than everything. back to communion. Lead me back to the moment that I saw your face. And it was so, so simple. It was easy to love. No space between us. It was easy to trust. closer than my breath, closer than the air breathing in. It's alright in my lungs. It's your breath in my lungs. It's your breath in my lungs. So we pour out our praise, pour it out. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our
So we pour out our
It's
your breath
in our lungs. So we
pour out our praise. It's your breath. Here we go.
in our lungs. So we pour out
One more time.
It's your breath in our lungs. So we pour out It's your breath in our There's no space between you and me.
Okay, so we want to take some time here to take communion together and remember Jesus that way together. So I'm going to read just a little bit of Luke here. It says, when it was time, he sat down, all the apostles with him. And he said, you have no idea how much I've looked forward to eating this Passover meal with you before I enter my time of suffering. It's the last one I'll eat until we all eat together in the kingdom of God. Taking the cup, he blessed it, and he said, take this and pass it around among you. As for me, I won't drink wine again until the kingdom of God arrives. Taking bread, he blessed it, broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body, given for you. Eat it in my memory. He did the same with the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the new covenant written in my blood, blood poured out for you. Then he says, do you realize that the hand of the one who is betraying me is at this moment on this table? It's true that the Son of Man is going down a path already marked out, no surprises there. But for the one who turns him in, turns traitor to the Son of Man, this is doomsday. They immediately became suspicious of each other and began quizzing one another, wondering who might be about to do this.
So I got to talking to God this last week about communion and what it means and why he did it. And he gave me a dream about it actually last night where he answered some questions. And one of the questions I had for him was, he's the only one that knew he was basically marching to his death. His apostles had an idea, but they didn't fully know what was about to happen to him. And so he was talking about he wanted to do something that they could remember him by, and that generations could remember him by, and it's a physical act of something that you could do. And so I asked him, I was like, he's sitting down at this feast, and if you read in the Passion Translation, it talks about it was a pretty big feast. There was all kinds of different meats there, just about everything that you can imagine. But he specifically grabbed for the bread, and he broke the bread. And if you look in Hebrew culture, bread is everything. Bread was life to them for hundreds of years. When the Lord was feeding them out of the in the desert, he was giving them manna, and they were using it to make their bread. So bread is life in their culture as far as that's concerned. And he was like, the bread is easily broken and it's freely given. And he was the bread for all of us to be freely given. And he wanted his disciples to remember that he gave of himself everywhere that he went. Everything that he did throughout his entire life. He wanted them to look back on his life and how he lived and imitate that and mimic that and give of themselves freely to each other as well. Not only to each other, but to everyone that they met, because that's how he operated. That's what he did. And so it was really powerful whenever I was talking to him about that, and just how he did that. Out of all the things at the table he could have picked, the meats, the lamb that was there would have been a more analogous to his body, but he chose the bread because of what it meant in their culture and what it meant to them.
And one of the things when we were talking about it that stuck out to us was how, it felt like it was an invitation to me for the disciples to take his heart in, he even told them, he knew that somebody that would betray him was there. He knew that. And it didn't change that he was going to give himself. It didn't change that person was invited into this communion with him. He still gave of himself. And so then he tells them this, and it was sort of like their opportunity to do the same thing. Even though one of my brothers here might betray, I'm going to partake in communion with them. I'm going to trust them. I'm going to honor them. I'm going to share this life, right? And they're in that invitation, they just couldn't do that. Like you heard me read, they immediately started saying, "Who is it?" They got suspicious of each other, right? They got suspicious. And actually, if we keep on reading, we'll see where that then turns into like a fruit we don't want, like insecurity and trying to get position and trying to come up to the highest level in the kingdom. They started arguing at that same table right after that. And so to us, we were just like, wow, like at this table, we are invited into the heart of Jesus that gives his life, bread, and his blood poured out to all without reserve, just as he had always done, regardless of who was at the table with him, right? So we felt that challenge. I would say it was confirmed when you had that dream, because I was already sort of feeling that, but that his life is given for all. And as much as we remember that, there's actually at the table the invitation for us to partake of that same heart, to almost like recommit and practice giving everything, all of me, all of his life, his blood poured out to everyone in my sphere, to everyone in us, among us, and not become suspicious of, sort of how the disciples did. Did you have something?
And one other thing he reminded me of too in the dream, because I was feeling a little overwhelmed whenever he was talking about, how he freely poured out his life and gave his life away to anyone that wanted it. And the human part of me was like, I don't know if I have enough. I don't know if I have that to give. Like I give to as many people as I can, and I'm wore out and I'm done. And so then he reminded me of the story of the fishes and loaves. And he was like, you keep reaching into the basket, I guarantee you there will be something there. There will be something that you can give, no matter what. And it's just bread is important. It's your life. It's pour it out to anyone freely, as he did for us.
Have the elements been handed out? Do you all have them? Okay, there's still a few more.
All right, so during that Last Supper, all right, he took up the bread from the table, he broke it, passed it around, and said, "Eat this and remember me. Remember what I did. Remember who I was. And remember who I am, for that matter."
And he took the cup and he said, "This is my blood poured out for you. Drink this and remember me." I just keep thinking of this scripture in Revelations. It says, "To him who loves us and who released us from our sins by his own blood, to him be glory and dominion forever." To him who loves us and released us from our sins by his own blood, to him be glory and dominion forever. Jesus, thank you. We remember you. We look right at you. Thank you that this blood, this body, your blood, your body, it heals us. Thank you that it makes us one. Thank you that it challenges us to come up into your heart at this table together. Okay, now it's our opportunity to give. I'm getting tongue-tied. So, Jesus, we honor you and we look to you and we thank you for the ability to be able to give of ourselves, of our time, of our resources, and of our monies. So let's stand. And if you brought an offering or your tithe to give, come forward now. If you do that online, that's awesome. But this is your chance to come and give here in person.
Hey, just wanted to put out a quick reminder for the youth, the Who Youth. On the 29th, I made this announcement last week, so we're going to the Country Creek Corn Maze. It's going to be a flashlight corn maze, so at night, in the dark, it's already hard enough. And they're also doing like moonlit hay rides and whatever, so if you're interested in coming to that, let us know. We're going to meet here at 6? I think we have that up there, yeah. $11 a person. It might actually be cheaper if we have more people come. So if you're an adult and you want to come too, I think I made that announcement, just let us know that you want to come out. It's going to be a lot of fun. You probably won't get lost. And we can dismiss kids that way.
Right. Good morning. Is this on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, awesome. Is today the first day that's felt like fall to you? Yeah? You like that? You like fall? You like fall better? Is that your favorite season? Yeah? Better than winter? You want to know something? I don't mind the cold. I told Amber this earlier. I don't like the cold. No, I like the cold until it starts falling from the sky. And once it starts falling from the sky, I'm like, I hate this so much. Because the second I have to start shoveling like the season off my driveway, then like I get mad, I get upset. I never have to shovel heat off my driveway. Leaves, I just blow them. All right. How are you? Do we have mics? We're gonna need mics. Mark's been talking about education, and I have been traveling a lot, so I wasn't here last week. I've been traveling for work. I was in Texas this week for work. So I haven't actually gone back to listen to everything that Mark has talked about. So like, there's a part of me that has my fingers crossed that I don't say anything that's super like, Mark said something totally opposite to that last week, and I'm like, oh man, dumb schedule, but I'm sure I won't. I'm feeling like traveling is becoming harder. I'm starting to feel the evidence, like I'm seeing the evidence of me getting older. Like I'm feeling that. You're laughing, but like, he's like, you're still young. But here are my evidences of me being older now. The first one was I don't know why people are famous anymore. Like, I'll go online and it'll be like, so-and-so did this and this. And I'm like, I don't know who that is. I have no idea who that person is. Why are they famous? And I find out that they're famous for being on an app that I don't even have. Like, so I'm like, I don't know why this person's famous. That's the first. The second is I actually do use reading glasses. I use reading glasses, and I never have put them on here in public, which is probably just a sign of my... not pride, all right? It's not pride. It's I can't find them. Like that's literally. I use reading glasses when I can find them, which is also another evidence of me feeling like I'm getting older. But I do use reading glasses, and I really wish I had them. Right? If you see me when I'm speaking and I'm not reading off the Bible, I'm reading off the screen. It's only because I cannot find my reading glasses. All right, that's the reason. All right. And the third one, which is directly tied to education, is I no longer understand what my children are learning in school. Like I don't grasp it, I don't comprehend it, I don't when it comes to math. In college, I was a business administration major until I figured out that I wasn't a business administration major. Mostly that was because I couldn't pass calculus. Where did the numbers go? Where did actual numbers go? I could deal with numbers, right? And I passed my pre-cal. You take pre-cal? Is it pre-cal? I passed pre-cal. I don't know how. Well, I know how, but I won't say it on my. I won't say it here. All right. I passed my pre-cal, thinking that the way I passed my pre-cal was going to help me in calculus, and it did not help me in calculus because they were speaking in a language that I couldn't understand, to the point where I couldn't even ask even stupid questions because I didn't even know questions. I didn't even ask questions because I didn't know what questions to ask, right? And here's the deal. I actually believe in my heart the basis of all education, and Mark has been talking about it connected to faith, but without humility, there's no chance for you to get an education. Because you have to be at a place where you recognize, I don't know this. I don't know this. Oh, and guess what? Cheating on the test is not helping you know it. Not. So I was a high school history teacher. See, history was easy because like the answers are already on, like they're on the page, right? Like I didn't have to figure out the answer, right? And then in college, I became a journalism and creative writing major, right? That's what I graduated in. And the reason why I did that was because there were no answers. Like nobody can pin me down on like 4 is the answer, right? It's subjective. Somebody, I read something and then I tell you what I feel about it or what I think this symbolism is. But if you put a math example in front of me, I can't be like, well, this symbolizes my lack of understanding, and I can't write a paper about that. And so that's why I went this other route. I do not understand. So this is what generally happens when my children ask me for help in math. Jonah no longer asks me for help in math because he's dealing in an area that's past my knowledge threshold. Like I know I don't cross into that land. All right, he's good. Jovi's pretty much there. Tallulah, right? She's not yet in middle school, so I could deal with this math until the other day, where she presented me a math problem that I didn't even understand the concept. So what I did was I took pictures of the problem and I texted Ashley Wiley and I said, Ashley, could you please tell me what is happening here? All right, tell me what's happening here. And I did this behind Tallulah's back so she wouldn't know that I was so ignorant. So you didn't know this part, right? But I'm like, Ashley, please. And I'm kind of crying in the background, like, I don't understand this. And she sent me back the answer, and now I'm a hero because I'm able to, like, I'm a hero, I'll be able to. But I cheated in that test too, I guess. Oh, man. And you know what? The problem is she's going to come back for more, and I'm not going to know that answer. And she's going to figure it out. But I don't know. I don't know. But I was thinking about this morning. I remember speaking on Mother's Day, and I was like, well, I'm vastly unqualified to speak on the mother's experience. And I only taught for a year. I only taught for a year in a private school. And a quick story. I had these 2 girls in my history class, and they were not exactly great students. Like separately, they were really bad students, and together they were marginally bad. And they used to cheat off of each other on tests. And I just used to let them because I'm like, I'm not going to deal with that situation over there. Choose someone smarter to cheat off of, please. And these 2 girls, so like, this is like a ridiculous situation. I want to know from teachers. We have teachers. I think this church is full of like nurses and teachers. That's what we have, nurses and teachers and business owners. But I would like to know, and computer people. Oh, that's certainly true. All right. I actually want to know from teachers, and even if you're homeschooling, I would love to know that. What is your greatest joy about teaching, and what's your greatest frustration? Oh, you want to go first? Sure.
I'm Erin Brookins, for anybody who doesn't know me. I teach 6th grade at Cam South. My greatest joy is, first off, I adore and love my job. My greatest
qualifier. That was a qualifier. First of all, I love my job.
You didn't tell me you were in Iraq.
Go ahead. Go.
I'll just wait until you're quiet, Ben.
Wow. There you go. We both have mics. Do not turn off my mic. Do not. Whoever has the power to do that.
My greatest joy in teaching truly is speaking life into my kids and letting them know what I see in them. But the greatest joy is when they believe what I see in them. So, for example, I have this child who failed last year and is in my class this year. And he often doesn't do his work because he doesn't believe he can. So I told him one day, I was like, kid, just try, you might surprise yourself. So like 2 days later, he came to me and he goes, Mrs. Brookins, you were right, I surprised myself, I tried and I did really well. So like, it's just, my biggest joy is when they see what I see in them. And And then my biggest frustration is just the complete opposite, when they don't believe in who they are. For example, I have a student that last week I had them write a letter to me about what I can do to be their champion in life. And she said, look, we have no money. We live in a little apartment. I'm never going to get out of the situation that I'm in. And it just like frustrates me, like, how can you not see this little beautiful girl that I see that has all this potential? So that's my greatest frustration.
Awesome, thank you. Well, I know we have other teachers here. Amber, I'll walk this all the way to you. Thank you.
I would say that I tell parents all the time there's so much more that takes place in the classroom besides teaching. So I would say that when a child opens up, not even academically, but when a child sits beside my desk during lunch because they just want to talk to me, and when they allow me to be a part of their conversations, which we have lunch in my classroom, and so like I said, there's so much more that takes place in the classroom besides, it's just social. Like, learning to be friends. Those are really big things besides, learning how to read and write is incredible, but learning how to be friends and be kind. And when we see those things take place, that's huge. I would say my biggest frustration is parents enabling their children to not do well.
Can you give an example of when we do that?
Not reading emails, saying I never knew that. So we didn't prepare for that because I never knew that, even though I face-to-face talked to you about it already. So I would say enabling. If a child, and hey, I teach middle school, and so for sure they like to get away with things, and then when the parents help them get away with things, and then I call them out on it.
I think sometimes we do that, like, even like unconsciously, subconsciously. Like sometimes we'll just give an excuse of why, like, oh, okay, we'll figure out how to, I'll talk to the teacher. My parents weren't those people, so I don't really but enabling parents not to be involved, or enabling your kids to get away with it by not being involved, is an interesting point, because I wanted to talk about that a little bit today. Mark actually brought this out, like, our kids still have the most time with us, right? And I used to be of this mindset just recently where I was like, you know what, the school just teaches the wrong subjects. We should be teaching them financial literacy, and we should be teaching them how to balance a checkbook, and we should be teaching them. And I just realized that what I was trying to do was farm out my responsibilities of teaching my children and say, hey, you do this. You're teaching the wrong subjects, right? And looking at them, and meanwhile, I'm like, what am I doing? So I no longer am of that opinion. I think it would be nice, right? But we have a lot of responsibility in the education of our own kids. Ashley, did you want to say something about anything in teaching? Anyone else? I said homeschoolers as well.
My favorite moment right now is when a child learns how to communicate the voice inside of them, because I tutor grammar and writing, and so I get to help them not help them write their papers, but tutor the writing. And you'll have a child that maybe not be connecting to the subject model, but they're learning how to communicate things that they think are interesting or funny or deep or even the motive behind a character. And they get to read their paper, and you can tell the moment where like, this was inside of me, and now it's out here. And that's really been really precious, because they stand up there and they read their paper and they tell their title, and then they're like, and then that unspoken moment is, and I did this. That's a really cool moment for me.
You have a frustration? You can't go half in.
Frustration. Yeah, frustration is when they just want to be done fast, and they don't want to invest themselves in the moment in front of them. And I constantly say, do you have someplace else to be? And they realize, because a lot of the other things they do are fast-paced things, and they're not used to giving prolonged attention to something, and they'll cut themselves short, and that's frustrating.
There anyone? Bob?
because I'm not in the school system anymore. I retired from the school system this year. I did special ed in Camps North, and or at least that was my last home. And I have a gift for you. This app is called Wolfram Alpha. And this was gifted to me by probably one of the smartest people in this room, and he used it to pass his math tests. So thank you, Chris.
I'm trying to avoid math. I don't need apps to help.
This is,
I text
but you
Ashley.
see,
This is my method.
This is how you do this, and then it shows you how you do it, and then you show them, and then you show them this app,
Cool.
and then you walk away, and you gave them the ability to do this by using the tool.
Does anybody else need help with their math? All right.
So yeah, it's called Wolfram Alpha, and it will like do things like rocket science and stuff. It's great. Anywho, for me, one of the most frustrating things is the use of the four-letter words like can't and won't, because it's already that teachable spirit's not there. And one of the biggest challenges for me was to find a way to meet them where they were, so that they can find a way to where they need to be. Because, like Aaron said, you can see the giftings they have. You can see how awesome they really are. They just can't, or they won't. And so you work through that. The greatest thing was when that light comes on. The use of what is the term is, if it's important, they'll make a way. If it's not, they'll make an excuse. And excuses are like armpit. Everybody got them, and they all stink. So
I have two armpits.
2 excuses.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll tell you, in my year teaching, my biggest joy was a moment where I would have a student actually help another student, like almost organically, not in like, oh, I need to tutor somebody, but like, oh, no, I understand this. Because I knew that student would be able to communicate it in a way better way than I was communicating it. Because somehow, and this is what happens in any kind of education, like you think you know a subject and you try to communicate it to someone, and someone takes that subject, and what they're able to do is, if they have a heart for learning, they'll take it and they'll translate it into their head, and they'll translate it in a way that they can understand. Right? And if you're a really, really, really good teacher, you're actually able to translate things into a way that people can understand, right? So when someone was teaching someone else, I knew that translation had happened in their head, right? And they were able to talk to. My biggest frustration when I was a teacher was when a child would be like, I know. Do your kids do that? Do your kids do that? Because you realize you're teaching your kids, like constantly. There's a constant education of your children, and it's happening. And I used to do this to my father, and my father doesn't hide his frustration well on his face. Like he'll just be like, I could see his eyes roll back in my head when I would be like, I know. And he would be like, you do not know. You do not know. And that's why I say when all learning is based on humility, it's based on not me stopping and being, or just like you said, trying to get it done fast. Usually trying to get it done fast is, I know, right? That was always my biggest frustration. Because you're just trying to brush me off. But I noticed something about all the things that the teacher said is that they didn't talk about any subject. Like they didn't talk about, I love lecturing about history. Like, nobody says that. Nobody says, I love writing nobody says that. It's actually about the student, right? Like, the teaching experience is actually never about the teacher. Truly, it's never about the teacher. It's actually about the student. And what the teacher is doing is trying to create an environment where the student is able to take what the teacher has, comprehend it, translate it in their mind so it actually can become usable, right? This is why children are easier to teach than adults, because children have a heart to learn. They have a heart for humility. And more times than not, what happens with us as adults is we walk in with all our preconceived notions and understandings, and we find every single reason why you are not correct, instead of putting ourselves in a place of humility so that we can learn. I'm telling you, I teach adults now. I work for a rather large company, and my job is to teach adults. And adults like college professionals. And more times than not, I hear these two words that drive me crazy, okay? Yeah, but, and I'm like, oh. Because I knew you were actually carrying that butt in front of your face. Like you put your butt right in front of your face, right? And you said, interact with this butt. Because no matter what I'm going to say, this happens in churches all the time, right? Yeah, but. We take like a concept, right? Like we take an understanding of God, or we'll try to teach anything about the Lord, and the yeah, but comes, and it's usually the yeah, but what about this one situation that happens 1 in a trillion times, and we use it as the thing that blocks off any understanding that we can have of what the greater purpose is. And this is what happens with adults. So sometimes your knowledge, you become so smart you get stupid. So like we gather all this understanding and all this knowledge, and then we place it within the prism of our perceptions and our experience, that we no longer can interact with the new thing that God's trying to present to us. Doesn't matter who's up here presenting it. So it's the heart. Well, we're going to get into a scripture because I want to show why this is a heart matter. So I love that no one said it's about the subject. Because it's never about the subject, it's about the student. And the interesting thing is, or the problem, and I have so many opinions about the education system that I'm not interested in sharing, but I have to realize that it is a system. All right? We say, Bob is the only one who said the school system, all right, or the education system. And we have to understand that once you say system, you have to understand that once you say system, it is inherently narrow. Because every system has to have an end point, a start and an end point. So we try to cram everything. Like, there are so many students who just don't operate well in the school system because the system is inherently flawed. Not because it wants to be flawed, but because it cannot cover every single permutation of every single student, of every single person, and that's why you have different tributaries off of the main system. We have to catch this one, and we have to catch this one, and we have to catch this one. But they don't catch everyone. And a system will never catch everyone. And this is why your homes are the most critical areas of place of learning that you can ever, that exists. And every teacher has told you right now that your home doesn't have to be the place of math teaching, and it doesn't have to be the place of science teaching or that. No, it needs to be the place of teaching of relationship and understanding and comprehension and how to think. And Jesus did this for his disciples all the time. Because what would he do? They would ask him a question. They would say, question. And Jesus would say, let me tell you a story. And usually story didn't match with question, and disciples are like, I don't know what is he talking about, right? But what Jesus is doing is, instead of standing there and answering the question, which then becomes a very reliant relationship, he's actually putting in the mind of the child, who is his disciples, how to think. This is how you have to think, all right? And if you're not good at thinking, you probably should stop thinking and ask somebody. But that's not the point. That's not the point of your life. That's not the point of how to move on in growing and being mature. Okay? So Jesus never answers these questions, like directly. If I was Jesus and somebody was like, Jesus, am I going to sit at the right hand of you? No. I think that would have been like the answer. No, but he says, "Here, you see this child, right?" I'm like, "No, not you." It's funny you asked. So let's go to 1 Kings 3. Does everybody remember the story of Solomon and what Solomon asked from God? What did Solomon ask for? Wrong. This is collective thought. He never uses those words. We just get taught that in Sunday school because it's faster. Solomon asked for wisdom. So let's go to 1 Kings 3 because he doesn't use those words. And we're going to read this story. All right. Then Solomon formed a marriage alliance with Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and took Pharaoh's daughter and brought her to the city of David until he had finished building his own house and the house of the Lord and the wall around Jerusalem. The people were still sacrificing on the high places because there was no house built for the name of the Lord until those days. Now Solomon loved the Lord, walking in the statue of his father David, except he sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. I thought, that's an interesting verse to me. Like Solomon was really good, except he had this one thing, right? And I just love that his one thing didn't disqualify him. Like, I love that. I love that line is in there. But it didn't disqualify him. The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for there was a great high place, and Solomon offered 1,000 burnt offerings on that altar. In Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream at night, and God said, "Ask what you wish me to give you." And this is where we kind of put in, and Solomon asked for wisdom, okay? Solomon did not use those words, and I think it's really important, the words that Solomon used. Then Solomon said, "You have shown great loving kindness to," a lot of pomp and circumstance right here, all right? "You have shown great loving kindness to your servant David, my father, according to as he walked before you in truth and righteousness and uprightness of heart towards you. And you have reserved for him the great loving kindness that you are giving him a son to sit on the throne, as it is in this day." So Solomon's like, me. That's a weird way to say me, but me. "Now, O Lord, my God, you have made your servant king in the place of my father David. Yet," what's the place of Solomon? Right here. He's in the place of humility. Because he recognizes something about himself. He recognizes that he is ill-equipped. He's ill-equipped at this time. He says, "I am a little child," and he identifies that. So he's in a place of humility, and this is the place where God already sees, all right, I can work with him. Like, that's fertile ground. And we talk about, when we throw out the seeds of the word, right? Some on the thorns, and some on the thistles, and some on the hard pavement. And the ground that is good is the humble ground because it's soft. And what humility really is, it's softness. It's softness. It's the ability to accept the thing, to take it in, and then allow it to grow. Okay? So, now, my Lord, my God, I'm sorry, I went through that. "I am a little child. I do not know how to go out or come in. Your servant is in the midst of your people, which you have chosen, a great people who are too many or too numbered to be or counted." A good thing about humility also is to recognize the one, how do I say this right? When interacting with God, a great way to be humble is to recognize the greatness of God. Like, if you really want to get humble, start truly focusing on the greatness of God, and it'll bring you to humility quick. Really quick. Samson actually had the opportunity to be humble. And in life, you actually humble yourself or you get humbled. And one is infinitely easier than the other. Be humbled. Well, yeah, you don't want to be humbled. Anyway. Okay, so this is where we put the word wisdom because we want to get really fast with it, right? But Solomon said something so much better. He said, "So give your servant an understanding heart to judge your people, to discern between good and evil. For who is able to judge this great people of yours?" That was a pretty wise thing to ask for. It was a pretty wise thing to ask for. And it was pleasing in the sight of the Lord that Solomon had asked this thing. And God said to him, because you have asked this thing and have not asked for yourself long life, nor asked riches for yourself, nor have you asked for the life of your enemies, but have asked for yourself discernment to understand justice. Like, I love that in here, we're truly getting what the definition of wisdom is. You're getting it. You don't have to look it up in the dictionary. Right here, Solomon says, I need an understanding heart in order to judge your people correctly. We walk away from the word judgment so much, but right here, Solomon's saying, I need to be able to judge correctly. The only way I'm going to be able to do it is, one, by being humble, by two, having an understanding heart. And then the Lord adds, and understanding good from evil. And then the Lord adds to what the definition is and says, but you have asked for yourself discernment to understand justice. So if you want to understand what wisdom truly is, it can't be separated from justice. It can't be separated from a discerning heart. It can't be separated from the understanding of good from evil. Can't. But I want to focus on the understanding heart portion. I love the revelation in here that wisdom is a heart matter and not a head matter. Because I think more times than not, we say, well, there's this really, really great, not great, but you know this saying, wisdom comes with age, right? Or wisdom comes with experience. But here we have the little child who is standing in front of God, who has neither age or experience, and is wise enough to understand that the age and the experience will come, but age and experience with a hard heart will breed arrogance. But age and experience with an understanding heart will allow to judge rightly. And this is the basis of where forget about the education system. We actually have to walk into the system being pliable. See, we blame so much the system, but sometimes it's really, truly us who don't want it. There is no education without a humble heart, without an open heart. So if you want to truly walk in and learn something, you actually have to, and I said that, I'm just repeating now, but you actually have to divorce yourself from the knowledge that you have and put it to the side for a while. It doesn't mean that it's not valuable. It doesn't even mean that it's not right. But what it can be, in the time of your learning or the time that you need to sit under someone, it can be your blocker. So, have you ever done this where you know someone's an expert in something? Have you ever sought out an expert in something? What did you see out an expert in? Oh, Wes. At work. Perfect place, right? Work is actually a great place to put away competition and actually walk in mentorship. Right? We make it this competitive place, but I'll tell you, Wes finds someone, he doesn't know how to do something. He's given a task, but he has to partner with someone, right? Okay, hold on. Let me jump to one thing about education. I find this weird about education, all right? I know I said I wasn't going to say anything about it, but I have to say this thing about it. I find tests to be the stupidest thing ever. I teach you this subject, and now you have to take this test, and you have to show me everything that you memorized. And I'll tell you why. The reason why is because when I walk into work, right, my boss never gives me a task and says, I need you to do this task based on all your memory and all your understanding of what you know. You can't talk to anybody. You can't reference anything. You just have to do the task. Right. It never works that way. In fact, if I did that at work, right, and I said, hey, I did this task, I based it on everything I knew and everything that, I thought I knew, my boss would reject that work. My boss would reject it because it's ultimately narrow. So I don't know why we put children in a situation where we're like, hey, learn all this content and I'm going to test you on it, all your knowledge, when actually the world and where they're going to enter in means you're a nurse, right? Do you know it all? No, you don't. You know a lot more than me. So when I'm lying in that bed and you're my nurse, I should defer to you, right? Now you, in turn, don't know it all. So you go and you reach out to someone who knows more than you, right? All the time. And it's a great thing. And this is the place of learning. It's like, oh, you know what? Here is someone who is relying on me, this person in a bed, and they're deferring to me for care. And I don't know this thing. I should defer to someone else. Okay. So you go to somebody, like you're at work, right? And you're given a task, and you know you don't know it. What's your best option? Find out who does. And then you go and you ask a question. And honestly, education is built way more on questions than they are simply on subjects. Because questions are the place of true humility. Like a true, humble question is the breeding place for learning. Because somebody is actually asking, oh, I want to know something. And you know what's a great thing to do when you ask someone who knows a lot about something, when you ask them a question? You know what a great thing to do is? Shut up and listen. I don't know what better advice to give you. Shut up and listen. Like the most holy thing you could do when you ask somebody a question. You want to come on under someone and learn something? Shut up. And I don't even mean the verbal talking. I mean here. All this stuff that's happening here while somebody... How many times are you counseling somebody and you look at them and you're like, they are talking in their head and they can't hear what I'm saying to them? Right? But they come to you, right? And they pay you? Does this make any sense? Does that make any sense? Hey, you know what? I'm going to come to you, I'm going to pay you, and I'm going to listen to everything I have to say in my own head. It makes no sense. It makes none. But we do this all the time. I mean, I do it in relation, my wife knows something. She knows something, but I'm so in my head, and I can't even listen to the answer to the question I have because I'm ready for all my responses. And I'm not trying to make this a good listening seminar. But at the place of humility, there's also voices that happen inside your head, and you have to stop them. We have to be good learners. And I say this about Christians. I don't think we're really good learners. I don't think we're really good learners. Especially to people who we don't consider saved. Because I have all the answers I need right here. I mean, forget about your experience, and people are trying to tell us about their experience, and they're trying to tell us about their pain. And you know what? Ultimately, it's about the student. So here I am, maybe I'm in the place of teaching, and I have a revelation for them. And here is a student right here who's trying to, and it's about them. It's not about the content I'm trying to give them. This is all the content I'm trying to give them. It's beautiful. Don't get me wrong, I love the scriptures, I love the Bible. But you know what? When we're dealing with people who, don't view it that way, it's content. You realize that, right? It's content for most people. And I sit here, I have a revelation of it. But you know what? I have to understand the place of that student. Because it's about the student. It's about the student. So the student actually gives me insight into where their pain is. Right? They give me insight into where their pain is, and they talk, and they give you understanding about where they're struggling and why they can't accept any of this, because this, and this, and all my pain. And I can listen to their pain, and once I hear their pain, I can actually understand the better place to interact or show them where Jesus actually is in that. It's here. It's about the learner. It's about the student. We have this, I hated this saying in the beginning. We have this saying at Amazon, and it just rubbed me the wrong way, but I understand it now. But our learning department had this saying that said, if the student didn't learn, then the teacher didn't teach. And I used to be like, well, what about What about I put a lot of work in this, and I made it about me, right? I made it about me. Like, what do you mean I didn't teach? I was busting my butt trying to teach this moron. I'm sorry, did I reveal too much about my... Oof, God forgive me. All right. But I realized what that was saying is I didn't make it about the student. Like I just made it about content, trying to, I need to get you this information instead of trying to understand where's their point of struggling. And then me as a student, to be humble and to be fertile ground for learning just means that I'm asking questions. And I remember get frustrated at questions at times. Like, why are you asking that question? I thought I taught that. And what the student is saying is, I'm trying to be really humble here. Like my place of questions is my humble, that right there is my vulnerable place. I'm asking a question. How many times were you sitting in a class and you didn't ask a question because you didn't want to look stupid? You've never done that? Raise your hand. I don't want to ask this question. Heck yeah. Why? Because you're going to be really vulnerable at that time. Very vulnerable. So for us as Christians, even saying that kind of, but we would be much better teachers of who Jesus actually is if we understood that the questions were the vulnerable places, not the attacking things, right? So when somebody says, what's the ultimate question that most non-Christians have when talking to Christians? Why do bad things happen to good people? And I've always viewed that as oh, here comes it. There's an attack. Here's an attack on... And I know now that that's a vulnerable place for them. Because you know what? They probably had good people in their life that bad things have happened to. And they can't reconcile it. But what we do is we get so arrogant and we're like, oh, this person doesn't want to hear about Christ. This person doesn't want, and it becomes this battle or this conflict instead of, wow, you want to know something? I've actually had situations like that too. Yeah. These things happen in life, right? They happen in life. And when somebody comes up and says, why do bad things happen to good people? This is not the place of attack. Or we have to stop looking at it as the place of attack. This is actually the place of education. That's the place of humility. So we can't live there. We can't live in that. Where am I? Okay, I have 10 minutes. All right. I want to show you something in a book. There's somebody in this room that said you should read Habakkuk this week. So I decided to read Habakkuk. All right, and in the first chapter, I was like, oh, wow. Okay, this is actually really interesting. So let's go to Habakkuk 1. And we're going to read a bunch of verses here. Habakkuk is going towards the end of the Old Testament. Habakkuk. It's not a popular name nowadays. I don't see people naming their kids Habakkuk. Not a weird name. All right. The oracle which Habakkuk the prophet saw. We're going to read a little bit. There's actually one verse. There's one little line that I want to get to, but we need to get some context. How long, O Lord, will I call for help? Talk about why do good things happen, or why do bad things happen to good people? This is Habakkuk's cry. Or where is their justice? This is Habakkuk's cry in the beginning of this section. These questions are not new. Oh, do you know everything that we're going through? As a nation, none of this stuff is really new. You read this story and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, that sounds kind of familiar to what we're going through right now. These things aren't new. It's just that we allow a cycle of, well, we'll get into it. All right. How long, O Lord, will I call for help and you will not hear? I cry out to you violence, yet you do not save. Why do you make me see iniquity? Does this sound like kind of the prayer of today? And you cause me to look on wickedness. Yes, destruction and violence are before me. Strife exists and contention arises. This is not new. What we're experiencing today, it's not new. Therefore, the law is ignored and justice is never upheld. Does it sound familiar in any way? For wicked surround the righteous, therefore justice comes out perverted. Whoa. And this is not even New Testament. This is Old Testament. Look among the nations, observe, be astonished, wonder, because I'm doing something in your days. Thank God. You would not believe I told you. For behold, and here's the deal. Behold, I'm raising up the Chaldeans. Is it Chaldeans or Chaldeans? Huh? Yeah? Chow? Mark, I'm going to give you the final word on pronunciation. Yes. You all are wrong. Look at me being arrogant right now. I was humble. I asked the question. That's horrible. All right. I'm raising up the Chaldeans, which actually should be really interesting. Chaldeans are basically, Babylonians at this point, right? And I love how they're described here. The fierce and impotent people who march throughout the earth to seize dwelling places which are not theirs. They are dreaded and they're feared. Their justice and their authority originate with themselves. That's like usually that would be a very condemning word. It's not necessarily a compliment. Well, it's not a compliment, all right? But they're being raised up. Their justice and their authority originate with themselves. Their horses are swifter than leopards and keener than wolves in the evening. Their horsemen come galloping. Their horsemen come from afar. They fly like an eagle swooping down to devour. All of them come for violence. This is a really interesting line, considering what was Habakkuk crying out about. In the first, he was like, violence. And now the oracle that he's seen is saying, the people that I'm rising up, what are they coming for? Violence. Interesting. Their horde of faces moves forward. They collect captives like sand. They mock at kings, and rulers are laughing matter to them. They laugh at every fortress and heap up rubble to capture it. Then they will sweep through like the wind and pass on, but they will be held guilty, they whose strength is their God. I find that to be a really interesting line too. Like, Lord, I'm talking about not being humble. Those whose strength are their God is the picture of a lack of humility. Okay, you are not from everlasting, O Lord, my God, my Holy One. We will not die. You, O Lord, have appointed them to judge. And that's a hard line. And you, O rock, have established them to correct. This is a bit problematic. Why? Why? It's a hard line right there. Oh Lord, you are taking the Chaldeans, who you just described in a way that would be less than favorable. Right? A little bit of an understatement. Although there are qualities with them that you're like, man, you want those people on your side. Right? There's some things on there like you're like, yeah, that's kind of I need that people. I need those people on my side. And the Lord looks at them and says, hey, you need this in your life. So I am raising them up, and I've appointed them to judge, and I've established them to correct. This is really, really hard. And what I realized while reading this, and Brian, this is where I got to, I'm reading Habakkuk. I realized that if I'm going to be truly humble and a pliable person and a like fertile ground for learning, then there will be things established or appointed to judge me or established to correct me that I would have rejected in my own righteousness. In my own righteousness, they're not even fit to talk to me. They're not fit to rebuke me. You don't even know who Jesus is. You don't the world. This is the stance between the world and the church right now. We look at the world and we say, they have no right to say anything about us. Us. We are the chosen. We are righteous. We are this. And we're staring in a mirror. We're staring at a mirror. Because many of the things that they do, we do. Right? We just hide it under the pews. Right? Hide it under the pews. Or we just don't talk about them. Or we ignore them. Right? And we look at them and we condemn them. But since the dawn of time, the Lord has used things that you would consider unrighteous and has appointed them to judge or to correct. And this gets really, really hard when the things that present themselves in your life are really, really hard things that make you question if God is good. You sit there and you're like, look what just happened. I have to question if God is good. It's a real thing. Have we been there? Like, have I been there by myself? Right? Why this God? Why did you allow this, Lord? You think only non-Christians have the why do bad things happen to good people? We do it all the time. We ask the Lord ourselves, why did you allow this to happen to me? It happens constantly. Why do I have to deal with this situation? God, I love you. I think I'm doing everything. I think I'm doing the right things. Why is the wrong thing happening, or why am I getting the wrong results? So we ask God that very question that people ask us. And the difference is that God, when asked in a humble way, is able to answer those questions. Like he's able to work in that space. Why have you allowed? But you know what? Sometimes it takes a little bit of faithfulness to wait a little while to get out of that place, to turn around and say, I understand now. Oh, I understand now. I get that he raised up some Chaldeans, and you know what? They were swift, like their horses were swifter than leopards, and they came for violence, and I'm on the other side of this thing now, and I can see, oh, that thing was appointed to judge and correct. So in the midst of that thing, I had a question if God was good, and now outside of it, because he sustained me and he brought me out, I could say, oh, God is good. That thing that I had to go through, that wasn't so good, but God was good in the midst of that thing. So if you really want to be a learner, and I'm not preaching to you, I'm kind of talking to myself too. If I really want to be a learner, I'll say it this way. If I truly want to be a learner, and someone who operates humbly and is pliable, and someone who actually is good ground, fertile ground for growth, then I have to come to the realization that everything has something to teach me. Every single thing. And unfortunately, that includes some really, really, really hard things. Some very hard things. Some things that we don't want to talk about. Some things that we do want to sweep under rugs. Some things that we do want to ignore. Some things that we don't want to confront. All of those things have value in it that they can teach you something. And I'm not saying you need to live in that place. I'm not saying that you have to keep that or hold on to that thing forever. But talk about the pearl in the field. If you want the pearl in the field, you're going to have to buy the whole field, right? Right, you're going to have to buy the whole field. Or the treasure in the field, right? Like, it's buried deep in there. Buried deep. But you know it's in there. So you have to take everything from that situation. I have to take it all. I'm going to have to take it all. I'm going to take the pearl out. But you know what the smart thing about, I've come to a realization about that that short little parable. If you find a pearl in a field, you buy the whole field. It's actually not with the expectation just to get that treasure. More people, like people when they're thinking, they're like, there's more treasure. This is a field, there has to be more treasure. And in that field of experience that you had that was hard, and there's a pearl of understanding, I guarantee you, if you keep on digging, you're going to find more pearls. You're going to find more treasure. And this is the place of true maturity, is where you can take that thing, that experience, that Chaldean, and you can extract out of it the judgment that you need, that correction that's critical, and grow. I actually don't want to be a person who can't be judged. I don't want to be a person that can't be judged. I want to be a mature person that can be judged. If I'm immature, then judging me is really it's not really that helpful. The more mature I become, which it's slow, I admit that, it's slow, but the more mature I become, the more I'm able to stand up and say, okay, judge me. I don't do that to every single person. I do that. I could go to Mark and say, hey, could you judge me? And that'd be a very loving thing and then he actually judges me and it'd be a loving thing. I do that. I mean, my wife has open, right? She's able to judge things that happen, right? She's able to discern. And you know why? Because she has an open heart for me. So I guess I'll close with this. This whole idea of education, learning, wrapped up in what Mark was talking about, faith, that is really faith. It's really supported by your humility. I think if you could stand, this is what I want to bless you with. What usually happens is as we gain knowledge, our humility levels, they dissipate. And I think the way that the Lord designed us to truly operate is as you gain more knowledge, you become more humble, because you understand the vastness of who God is. I learned something more, and I understand how much greater he is. And then I learn more, and it should propel me to even more humility. Because as I learn more and more and more, the thing that I really learn is that there's more to learn. So if I could be propelled through learning to be pliable ground again and again and again and again, and maintain, plow that land, plow it. So I can, so it can grow. So it can grow. So Father, I pray that there be a culture of humility among this family that allows us to learn and learn and learn. To the place that we can be approachable to all those who have the questions that they have, regardless of how combative those questions feel, Father. May I be so humble that I can actually see them and perceive them as the vulnerable place, as the gateway to understanding. Father, I thank you for these opportunities to learn that you give us every day, because every day, everything has something. Something. Father, it's the hard thing to ask, but would you plow the field that is my heart? I don't know what What are the blades that go into the ground and cut up the ground? Like if you could think about this thing, it's actually a really violent experience for the ground, right? Like, Lord, like you get a plow and it puts in its knives into, like its blades into the ground, and it tears that ground up. And it is a violent experience. Well, you know what? Remaining humble is actually a spiritually violent experience. And Lord, I thank you for that experience. It doesn't always feel good, and it turns up some rocks, and it turns up this, and it rips up this, and you know what? I really like that over there, but I kind of want to keep it. But Lord, would you plow it? Because if it's not a place that something can grow, then it lacks value. So Father, I pray for our family that we remain harvestable, fertile ground, so that we can continue to learn, regardless of what stage of learning we're in. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I love you all. Have a great week. Bye. Never know what to